Hello everyone, welcome to our channel Joy of Learning. I am Syed Munib, working as a lecturer in English at Nalanda Degree College, Anantapur. Recap of Day 1. The poem Digging is written by Seamus Heaney, an Irish playwright, poet and academic. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1995. Heaney recalls his memories as a young boy listening and watching as his father digs in the potato garden, sinking the spade into gravelly ground. He explains how well his father digs, which invokes an even older memory of his grandfather, his father's father. He also recalls the rooting out of potatoes and the cool feeling that he enjoyed when he was a child. The poet explains that his grandfather was an expert in completing the difficult task of digging through the peat moss. Now I am going to continue from line 17 of the poem Digging. Lines 17 and 18. My grandfather cut more turf in a day than any other man on Toner's bog. The explanation. A bog is a patch of wet, muddy ground covered in peat or turf, which forms the grassy top layer. The peat makes for a great fuel and fertilizer. So, Irishmen used it too, and some still do harvest the peat by cutting it from the bog and saving it for later use. Cutting turf is an incredibly difficult task, and the fact that Heaney claims his grandfather could cut more than any other man signifies not only the physical strength of his grandfather, but Heaney's own admiration for the hard work his grandfather was able to do by himself. Lines from 19 to 22. Once I carried him milk in a bottle, corked sloppily with paper. He straightened up to drink it, then fell to right away, nicking and slicing neatly, heaving sods. The explanation. The speaker describes a day when he brought a bottle of milk to his grandfather. He stops his work, quickly drinking the milk, and then his grandfather returns to digging and cutting. Line 23 and 24. Over his shoulder, going down and down for the good turf, digging. The explanation. The speaker's grandfather continuing to work hard in Toner's bog, chucking the turf over his shoulder as he goes. The good turf he is after is the nutrient-rich stuff that is good for using as a fuel or fertilizer. Lines 25 and 26. The cold smell of potato mold, the squelch and slap of soggy peat, the curt cuts of an edge. Here, squelch means a soft sucking sound that made by treading heavily through mud, whereas soggy means wet and soft, and peat means a brown deposit resembling soil. It is a decomposition of vegetable matter in wet acidic conditions, often cut out dried for use of fuel and in gardening. The explanation. Here the speaker talks about the smell of potato mold, the sound of the peat bog, and the cuts of the spade as it digs down into the earth. Lines 27 and 28. Through living roots awaken in my head, but I have no spade to follow men like them. The explanation. Those living roots could be interpreted as a metaphorical reference to the speaker's family, that is, his living roots. The speaker realizes that, unlike his father and grandfather, he has no spade to follow them in their footsteps. Lines from 29 to 31. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests. I'll dig with it. The explanation. Much is contained in these three simple lines. First, Heaney uses repetition, as once again he describes holding his pen between his finger and thumb. His diction here is also curious, as he uses the word squat to describe his instrument. While it can be described the physical appearance of the pen itself, Heaney could also be showing the connection between himself and his father and grandfather, both of whom would have to squat in order to properly dig for the potatoes and peat moss. The last line, I will dig with it, signifies that while Heaney realizes his instrument is different from previous generations, he is still completing an arduous task. While his father and grandfather dug for potatoes and moss, he is digging for the right word, constantly attempting to create sustenance through his words. Thank you for listening.